Welcome to the Sunriver Anglers Fly Tying Corner for this month. I've chosen a Humpy to tie. It's a great fly and it does a lot of things on the water. It's a very high floater. It imitates many things in nature, such as caddis, stoneflies, terrestrials like hoppers, etc. You can tie it in many different colors. For this one I've chose hot orange, and it just fishes extremely well. It looks buggy on the water and it's responsible for catching lots of fish. The materials you'll need for this pattern, we're going to start with a Daiichi 1180 size 14 to 18 hook. We're going to use 70 denier hot orange thread. You can use many other colors, but hot orange is what I'm going to tie this pattern with. For the tail, we use mule deer. For the abdomen, we've got hot orange thread, and I'll overlay mule deer on top of that from the tail, as you'll see in the pattern. The wing, I'm going to use mule deer, and the hackle will be 2 whiting dry fly saddle hackles in brown. Okay, so let's get started on this fly. I'm going to tie on the thread right at the 2/3 point of the hook, and that's pretty critical to set your wings exactly in the right spot, because all the proportions will be driven off that spot. So I've taken some mule deer and I've stacked it in my hair stacker. I've cleaned it very carefully, and now I'm going to tie it on. About the length of the wing will be about 2 times the gape of the hook as a good gauge, so you can measure off the hook gape. And this is a size 14 hook, so we about doubled it. Make sure you take into account the black tips that are on this deer hair, because if you don't, your wings will be a little bit too long and the fly will tend to fall over on its face when you cast it. So I've tied those on nice and tightly, and I've clipped up the excess, and now I've folded that wing backwards, and I'm building a little bit of a hump, and I'm tying a few strands in tightly to the wing. Next, I'm going to take my scissors and split that wing into 2, and I'm basically going to figure 8 that with a couple of wraps in between each wing. Next, I'm going to post each wing. Basically, I'm tying some wraps of thread around the wing itself, not around the hook shank, but around the wing itself. Here in a moment you'll see how this looks as I'll rotate my vise so you can better see it. So I've posted the near wing. Now I'm going to post the far wing. And so there's my wing. And you can see how that's nicely split, and those posts around each wing will hold it in place. Okay, so the next step is we're going to tie in a tail. I've stacked some more deer hair, probably about 2/3 the amount I used for the wings. And I'll bring that up to the hook, and I'm going to measure that at about 1.5 times the gape of the hook. I want this tail relatively short, and I'll tie that on right at behind the wing, but about a scissor width behind the wing. I need to leave a little space for my hackle behind that wing, so you'll note I left just a little bit of space, and you'll see that better as I progress this fly forward. So we'll tie this right back to the tail set. Then I'm going to grab that whole bunch and I'm going to wrap a couple of wraps around it, and I might even tie backwards a little bit. Then I'm going to tie forward in wraps, spaced wraps. Then I'm going to pre-clip all this. That's to keep all that stuff from getting tangled up in the wing. and being hard to separate. So I've grabbed it with just a couple wraps, and then I'm going to tie that off. So this next step is to tie in the hackle. I've selected 2 whiting brown saddle hackles, and I've married them together. I'm going to tie these in tandem, both at the same time. So I want to make sure they're fit tightly together. And I've stripped probably 3/8 of an inch of the barbs off of the stem of this hackle. And I'll tie those in. And then I'm going to capture the butts. I'm actually going to push the butts of those. You'll see them jump in front of the wing, and I'll wrap those up to the eye of the hook, or up close to the head position, and clip off the excess. This kind of corkscrews the hackle barb around the hook, so it won't pull out on you, which you don't want to have happen. So I've collected both these hackles together, and I'm going to wind them concurrently. If you've got them married tightly together, they'll wind right together for you as you move forward. Tie about 3 wraps in behind the wing, and I'll tie 3 wraps in front of. It's real important to try and tie these tightly against one another. So I'll finish up, and I'll wrap across just the barb or the stem of the feather and clip off the excess. Tying in hackles can be a bit of a challenge, but one of the tricks to it is always wind forward at 90 degrees from the hook shank. Don't tie at an angle, because they'll want to roll on you and they won't set right. So if you tie 90 degrees to the hook shank, they will set right at 90 degrees to your fly. So let me whip finish that and clip the excess. I've caught a couple of barbs up there, shame on me, but in any event, I'm going to reach in and just clip those off and clean up the eye of the hook just a touch. And then we'll put a little glue on. And if I got some glue in the eye, I can take the feather that I just tied the hackle with, and I can use that as kind of a sponge to reach in the eye of the hook, and it will soak up and pull any of that glue right out of the eye. It's a quick little trick. It's a quick little trick to use, clearing out your eyes. There's nothing worse than having glue in your eye when you're trying to tie on a fly late in the middle of a evening hatch when the light's starting to shade and you can't see. So I will roll this around in my vise. You can see the underside of that fly, and overall it's a great pattern. So that's your Sunriver Anglers fly tying corner for this month. Thanks for listening, and give the Humpy a try on your favorite stream. I think you'll be happy with the way it produces.